go about the facts. And I'd like to pick up a point that Peter Gilchrist made when he said that Bruce was wrong. Now that is totally incorrect. Bruce Kent was quite right when he said that the British government went into Afghanistan illegally before the UN Security Council had anything to do with it.
Yeah.
In fact, Britain started the war on October the 7th.
We won't have the time for all that.
Well, I'm sorry, I do want to make these 3 points.
Yes, I agree with you.
Britain started the war on October the 7th, 2001. Security Council Resolution 1386, which was the first one relating to Afghanistan, was not until December the 10th. That was 10 weeks after we had started killing Afghan citizens as a result of a request from George Bush. So it is guff and lies for our government to tell us that we have been brought in there before.
Sorry, please.
The second point.
No, I know you have taken too much with the first point. I will give you a chance later. Gentleman over there, and after that, gentleman.
Yeah, Guy Barmer from the military. The point picked up about casualties. I know full well about casualties because 3 of those deaths were good friends of mine. So I think I speak with some authority when it comes to casualties and the impact that casualties have on the military. They're actually quite small when you compare other counterinsurgency operations around the world. A few points. You said it's unwinnable, but you haven't actually defined what winning means. And until anyone defines what winning this counterinsurgency means, we cannot make a statement such as it's unwinnable. Some few facts. Governance. In the last 3 years, there have been 11 district governors. There were 5. 4 schools built and further 8 refurbished. School enrolment increased by 10% over the last year. Health clinics have pretty much doubled. Millions and millions of dollars has been put into economic development and governance development. You talked about we need to talk to the Taliban. The current governor of Musa Kala is a guy called Mullah Salam. 3 years ago he was Taliban. Funny old thing. We are talking to the Taliban. And we are reconciling those Taliban that want to be reconciled, want to be part of the government. Bruce Kent, you said that the point that counterinsurgency. Counterinsurgency always has a political solution. Counterinsurgency is never a military option in its own right. It is the political, it is the development, and it is the military. You only need to look at Northern Ireland. It took 38 years. When was the last time that the military was engaged in operations in Northern Ireland, actively either under fire or firing back? Well, it was about 10 years before the final political settlement. So you could argue that in those 38 years, 28 years was the military bit, the whole 38 years was the development and was the political solution. And I would argue that the military is not the solution, but we need to identify what the solution is and what winning the conflict is all about, because until that happens, we cannot make lip statements such as it's unwinnable.
I would like to say that to refute what the minister said. He was repeating exactly what the government has been saying, which is not at all convincing the people. The vast majority of the people are refusing the government point of view. And that is why a lot of the people actually inside the Labour Party have left, because the government is not convincing them.
Thank you.
That's point number 1. Point number 2, they accuse. I've got 3 minutes. Point number 2. They accuse that. Well, you took a minute from me now. They are accusing the Afghans of being terrorists, but in fact the government is terrorist. They are declaring illegal war. They are declaring illegal war in Sierra Leone, in Kosovo, in Iraq, and in Afghanistan. All of these have been declared without the United Nations agreement.
Have you got a question?
No, you cannot interrupt me. I am a professor. You are only a junior at heart. Right? You better be quiet. Continue.
Sit down.
Sorry, you are interrupting me. You can't go on like this. No, I'm not sorry. I could have finished by now. No, I have finished it twice as long. Right. They are corruption. In fact, the Prime Minister, Karzai, is actually the most corrupt person in the country. Do you remember 2 months ago, NATO came together, they met to elect somebody as a Prime Minister, as this gentleman said, who is less corrupt than Karzai, and they couldn't find one. And do you realize they mentioned Musharraf? Do you realize that Musharraf appeared on BBC television saying that the Americans threatened them. They told them, if you don't agree with us, we will take you back to the Stone Ages. And that is why Afghanistan is now expanded to involve Pakistan. And unless you leave the countries, you will be in a bigger fight all over the world. Thank you.
Thank you. This was the first round of and if we carry on like this, yeah, that's what I'm saying. So we won't go far. So I would request the distinguished speakers if they have got something to say on these three. What was this your question?
You shouldn't be a budget chair. You don't know how to chair. Let them speak.
He'll be thrown out in a minute.
You should be thrown out.
In answer to your question, there was 1368 on the 12th of September, 1373 on the 28th of September, and 1386 was on the 20th of December.
23 December.
There were 3 resolutions.
None of those resolutions.
The 20th followed the Bonn Agreement.
None of those resolutions invited an attack by Britain or America. And there is no. All of them referred to Security Council resolution.
I'm just correcting your statement. Yeah, there weren't any UN resolutions prior to the 20th of December.
Not on that issue.
Did they authorise the military action against Afghanistan?
There's chapter 7 from the UN and Chapter 5 from NATO.
Chapter 7, that is incorrect. It cannot authorise the use of armed force. Article 41 forbids the use of armed force.
Thank you, Chris. Any other speakers like to come in on this, or shall I take another 3 questions?
Can I just say, I found Peter's contribution fascinating. What confused me was he referred to a war against, an attack on insurgents, invitation to insurgents. But the whole justification for being there at all, the Brown says, is that it's a base for terror operating in this country. Now, is that what you think you're doing in Afghanistan, ending terrorist attacks here, or are you fighting an insurgency? If not, if it's an insurgency, why don't you push off to Sri Lanka? There's one out there.
Thanks, Bruce. I'm going to take another 3 questions. Sorry, Michael is going to come.
I mean, I don't want to sort of sound like the gorilla and the veteran here, but I think we all have very, very short memories. And we also have very short memories of moments of passion and passionate reaction. And if you think about those events, and I remember them quite clearly, September the 11th, it took 28, maybe 30 days before the first bombing took place on the 7th of October, or the 8th of October, I believe. And during that period of time, perhaps there wasn't what you required in terms of UN debate or discussion over it. But this was a country which had been very, very badly damaged, both psychologically but also physically, of course, by the attacks on the World Trade Center, which killed 3,000 people. And they, I think, behaved with some degree of restraint in not automatically reacting, because they had the opportunity to automatically react. They had no...
Is that why they attacked
Okay, now next 3 questions. One at the back. No, don't start the question yet. Bob, anyone here in this side? And